if you can get your clients to feel safe with you, that you're a man of your word or a woman of your word, that you're going to show up on time, and the list goes on, right, Josh? Those are not just only promises. And not only the promises that you make, but the assumed promises that you never have to say, like being on time. People expect that. Oh, I'll be there at 1. They expect it. And if you do show up at 1, immediately, on a very deep level, they may never, ever say it. They never even say, oh, Josh, he's a man that's very punctual. They never say that. But what they feel is, man, you know what? I feel safe with Josh because he's just showed up. I'm going to assume that everything he says from this point forward is going to follow the same suit.
Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a 7-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in. Hello, everybody out there. And today, welcome back to the show. We have Daniel Bai, my personal sales coach, and the guy that brought a lot of clarity around the conversation and the communication side, that how we interact with customers. So, Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Josh. Congratulations on the podcast. Looking good. Appreciate you having me. I'm honored.
Absolutely. And Dan, you've been on the show before. We've talked a lot about sales in the past and, communication in general. So today, I'd like to first start with a little bit of an introduction of who you are and why and what you give a shit about what you're saying. And then we'll get into how leaving your customers guessing is killing your closing rate. So Dan, who are you?
So I'm an unlikely, quote, sales coach. It's not something that I said when I was 6 years old that I wanted to grow up and be a sales coach. I think I wanted to be a, typical fireman and Major League Baseball player and a professional bowler. I think I wanted to be, or something like that. But it's funny, it's that I became an accidental salesperson, and maybe everyone listening, very similar situation where you get into an industry and you realize, holy crap, like I can't sell this or I need to sell this. And so that started my journey. I'm a chiropractor by trade, and I actually met Josh through your lovely wife, Bryn, and she's a chiropractor, and I do consulting mostly for the chiropractic profession. And you got to talk about people are an industry that has trouble selling, and that's it. I mean, these are doctors that went to school to help people, and then when they get out, they realize, oh my God, like why are all these people saying no to me? And it's not because of their lack of heart or their lack of hard work or their lack of technical prowess or their artistic ability or altruism. What I realized it all came down to is the fact that we are innately not good salespeople. Like our reflexes are not designed from the perspective of the other person to say yes to what we have to offer. So I needed to embark on that training. And unfortunately, I couldn't find it in my own profession. I had to find it outside the profession. Industries, giant industries that have embraced sales training the correct way, might I add, for generations. And so I had to go to them to learn how to do that. And long story short, we're helping revolutionize the chiropractic industry, and now revolutionizing other industries, including yours, Josh, as well. And so that's my long story. But I mean, if you really want to break it down, I mean, my struggles and my failures led to me where I am today. And I just don't wish that same type of that failure and stress on other people who want to share their gifts to the world as well. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it, and I'm glad to be here, man.
Man, I love that. And you're right. I mean, I saw how much you impacted your process, your systems, your philosophy impacted my wife's practice, her chiropractic practice. And I said, I wonder if that could be translated into our industry, to the outdoor living, hardscaping, and landscaping world. And what I loved about the core and why I chose to work with you is the fact that you aren't just about cold selling, it's about service. But we also have to work on how do we have a conversation with our clients so that we can demonstrate, not tell, but demonstrate our value. How can we set expectations? How can we lay out a process that we can repeat over and over again? Because things that are repeatable, you can actually go through and improve. If you're just winging it each and every time, like I used to do, before I met you, I was just winging it. And I was like, hey, 3 out of 10 is a pretty good closing rate. I'm happy with that. If I got 5 out of 10, I'd be thrilled. Mm-hmm. Like, that's just what it is. That's what our business is. The fact that we're always going to be at that. And then when I met you, I realized that's not the case. If we set up a process, a system, we can actually set those expectations over and over and over throughout our process very lightly, and our clients are ready for the next step all the time. We're not sitting here coming back asking for money like it's weird or having a hard time having that conversation. So, today what I'd love to dive into with you, Dan, is how are we leaving our customers guessing, and how is that killing our closing rate? Yeah. So much of this is about setting expectations. I'd love for you to talk into that, to the setting expectation side, and how do we do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, I just want to zoom everyone out for a second. And one of the best teachers that I have on sales is our own experience as consumers, okay? And it's funny, when we go out and we try to sell what we sell, it's like a different world compared to what we look like and feel like and think about when we're buying something. So a lot of the answers can be found deep inside you from a consumer experience. And we were consumers way before we were salespeople for anything, right? Yeah. We've been buying stuff since we were like maybe 3 or 4 years old, trying to, get something from our parents back then. Later on in life, you're buying knickknacks here and there. You're buying candy from the store. I mean, we grew up buying stuff. So our consumerism is deeply embedded into us. And sometimes we have to tap into that. Not sometimes. We have to tap into that now when we're trying to build an experience for all of our clients, patients, leads, customers, etc. And that's regarding expectations, because let me ask all the question is, if you went into anything you wanted to buy, for this sake, let's just say we went in to buy a car, okay? It's an easy thing because we've all bought cars, hopefully. The worst thing that you can experience as a consumer is confusion. And the one-liner that we always like to say is, confused minds don't buy. Confused minds don't buy. Here's another one-liner that I carry on with me as a fundamental of sales, is that not only confused minds don't buy, but time kills all deals. Those two things go together, because if you go around and set your systems up around those two tenets, what you'll find is, A, we talk too much. We talk about things that are irrelevant. We are space fillers of extraneous information that your prospects and your clients have no interest in, who will never latch on emotionally to. So that, from a grand scheme of things, from the top down 30,000 foot view, is confused minds don't buy. So back to expectations. What are the expectations? How do we create clarity in the first 2 or 3 minutes of meeting someone? Let's say it's a new lead, or you go out for a quote, or et cetera. And that is letting your patients know exactly what to expect. So Josh, the purpose of this meeting is really simple. It's for me to determine exactly what you want, what I have to offer, and what that gap is. And if I can help you with X, Y, and Z, then we can continue to the next step. And if you can't, I have other resources that I can help you with that you may be better fit for in the future. Does that work for you? Yes. Clarity. This is what we're going to do, as opposed to, yeah, this is a nice house. Oh, did you go to Marriott? Oh, that's such a great place. How old are your kids? Listen, there's a huge difference between being liked and being respected. And our goal here in terms of expectations is to be respected, not so much be liked, because your job is to provide a deep want, need, or desire. And the quicker we can get there, the better the outcomes are going to be, because your clients expect that you're there to fill their selfish want, need, or desire. So from a 30,000 foot view, Josh, we got to start there, because if we start building out systems without, adhering to the major tenets of good, proper sales and good communication, we're always going to be winging it every single time. You know what I'm saying?
100%, dude. And I couldn't agree with you more. I know that I've found out over the last 30 years of meeting with clients and selling stuff, that, uncertainty breeds stress. It breeds, just as you're saying, right? It's going to kill your sale, because if you tell your client, look, all right, I'm going to be out there Thursday at 2:00, and Thursday 2:00 comes and goes, and you don't show up till 2:30, the expectation of 2:00 has now been broken. So trust has now been broken. And they're thinking, well, you're just like everybody else. So when it comes down to it, the only thing we're going to compare you with is the number. Who's cheaper?
Yep. Absolutely.
And if that's the case, then you sit here and complain about how, oh my God, all it is a 3-bed situation and I keep losing on it. Well, let's just say, did you show up on time? If the answer is no, then, well, you've just kind of walked into that rat's nest yourself. And if you're said, hey, I'll have you a quote by Friday, and you don't get that quote back by Friday, and there's been no communication to that client for why, that client, yep, just like the rest of them, I guess we're going to look at price because that's the only thing we can compare now.
Yeah.
But just imagine for a moment, listeners out there, if you are that man or woman of your word, and if you say you're going to be there Thursday at 2:00, you're there Thursday at 1:55, prepared, ready to go. And that proposal comes out on Friday exactly as planned. And you even give a call to Mrs. Jones and tell her, hey, just sent the proposal over as promised. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll reach back out to you next week. How does that work for you? And setting those expectations, taking them on a journey, not just kicking them out the door and say, fend for yourself. I'll get to you when I have time. That's what it feels like in our industry. The clients feel that. There's no like, yeah, I'll get you a quote. And then there's this big open gap of time. And a client's like, that's a lot of uncertainty. I don't know when. Is this a person of the word? Should I keep looking for other contractors? And they do. If you don't give them clarity and you don't give them certainty, they're going to keep looking until they find that, because deeply that's what they want. Now, some people are only going to be out there for price, and that's just what it is. But the majority of people, listeners, the majority of people out there, they want certainty. And the way you do that is by setting expectations and delivering honor above them. I'll preach that to the day I die.
Oh, no doubt. It's so well said. And I'm going to tandem on that concept from the perspective of your prospects. There is a constant need for most prospects to feel safe. And that word safety is an incredibly profound way to look at it, because when you set expectations and you have clarity in what you're going to do and you follow through with that, one of the emotions, and we're talking about sales as an emotion, it absolutely is, from the perspective of the clientele, is they feel safe. Now, if you can get your clients to feel safe with you, that you're a man of your word or a woman of your word, that you're going to show up on time, and the list goes on, right, Josh? Those are not just only promises. And not only the promises that you make, but the assumed promises that you never have to say, like being on time. People expect that. Oh, I'll be there at 1. They expect it. And if you do show up at 1 immediately, on a very deep level, they may never ever say it. They never even say, oh, Josh, he's a man that's very punctual. They never say that. But what they feel is, man, you know what? I feel safe with Josh because he's just showed up. I'm going to assume that everything he says from this point forward is going to follow the same suit. Human beings are interesting people, man. I mean, it's like, you got to think, if you're demanding a high ticket thing, which is a huge investment, we're not selling ice cream here, which if it doesn't work out, it's not a big deal, right? If we buy ice cream and it's not very good, it's like, what do we really lose? Like $3 for an ice cream. How much is an ice cream cone these days? It's probably more than that. But anyway, we don't lose much. But when you're looking for high ticket and a large investment, that feeling of safety your clients have to feel is of paramount importance. And if we're not constantly thinking about that, how do I make my clients feel safe? How do I make my leads feel like, oh, like this is the obvious solution. The other dudes didn't make me feel this way. You know, setting expectations and delivering on that expectation, especially in the first, 1 or 2 days of meeting them, is absolutely critical.
100%, Dan, 100%. And when it comes down to it, it's not just in your initial 1 to 2 days. Obviously, that's the starting point. That's where we set the seeds. That's where we set the expectations for how this relationship, because ultimately, listeners, this is a relationship that we're building. It's not about just trying to figure out your fastest path to the checkbook. That's not what this is about. This is about building a relationship. If you want raving fans, the ones that are out there standing on the rooftops saying about how amazing your company is, and you want that kind of response from your customers, then you're going to need to work harder in the middle of it. You're going to need to set expectations and deliver honor above them. So that goes all the way through your initial conversation, your initial call, through your any of your transactions on the sales side, all the way down to your proposals, your detailed proposals. If you're writing proposals right now that are saying, patio, $16,119,
right,
landscaping, right, and you're giving no detail, you're leaving it up to the client, back to the uncertainty. It's breeding that stress. And you're like, well, you know what? The last guy, his price is better, but he didn't give me any detail. This one costs more, but I can rest assured that I have detail. He told me what plants, what size. He told me how big the patio, what it's going to be, what the base looks like. Details. what the warranty looks like, all those details, they add more and more certainty. And that certainty breeds confidence, and they will pay more for it. Think about it. Would you? I know I certainly would. 100%.
All the time. Like I said, we're consumers. So we're going to pay premium for that. And here's another thing when you're talking about like details. It's, if we establish that feeling of emotional safety, I don't think anyone really understands that when you list out details later on in the process, if you've already established that trust, they are not as, they don't look under every friggin' rock. They don't tear apart your proposal. They just assume, and rightfully so, that your detailed proposal can be trusted. Now, I'm sure, because I know I've done it with my contractors and my builders and my landscapers, etc., is I can determine how much trust I have in that particular company by how many follow-up questions me and my wife have, right? Because if I have a lot of questions, if you're out there, you're fielding a ton of questions after the first initial interaction or after the quote or the proposal, let that be a sign that you have not established enough trust for them to just assume that the answers to their questions are being answered, right? Or you've left immense holes in this process for them to feel safe. Understand, the constant questions they have that you probably think you already told them, if you're getting a lot of that stuff, understand that is a safety issue. Your clients are trying to find safety in the fact that I'm taking care of. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%. And you know what? When you're spending 6 figures, 6 figures on projects, and you're like, wait a minute here, if I can't trust him for the meeting part or for him to live up or her to live up to her word in the beginning, when we got $100,000 between us, what's that going to look like? We're on our first date in the very beginning. This is like marriage territory. Can I even handle this relationship? Can I trust this person? Am I going to have to fight them? Because the last thing they're going to want to do is have a confrontation with you or have to tell their friends that they picked the wrong person. When you're like, hey, I thought you said you were doing an outdoor living space. Well, we were, but pick Leroy and he hasn't shown up yet. He said he'd be here 6 weeks ago. He's still not here. And then the client looks like an idiot too, right? And that's just all the way around not a good thing. So being honest, being upfront, always setting the next steps at the last meeting so they always know what's coming next is so paramount to be able to help your clients. And it will directly correlate to closing more projects and serving more people. Now, one thing that I read, and it totally still fascinates me about this, the idea that people make decisions to buy things, almost 90% of it is emotional. And they justify it logically with 10%. So if we think that we're going to go in there and tell them all the features and benefits of our product, our service, and like we have the best bases, our patios are going to last the longest, blah, 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 down through, that's a logical 10%. But if you disconnect or completely don't engage the emotional side of this stuff, Mrs. Jones, why exactly are you doing this project? What are you hoping to achieve? If you're not getting into that side of the conversation, you are leaving a gigantic hole in your communication with your client. Would you agree, Dan?
So true. And this is the biggest challenge because I know a lot of people in the industry, in any industry, we're in it because we love it, right? We're into it. I'm not a landscape design architect builder, but I do know, I'm sure there's a lot of technical intricacies in what you do, right? I mean, you're part engineer, you're part artist, you're part material scientist, right? So there's a lot of things that go into, let's say, a $150,000 backyard, right? The materials that you use, the design elements, and then you got the architectural, because if you have a covered, patio, pergola, whatever, it's not just, you can't just slap it on there. So because you're in the industry, we have this knee-jerk reflex to think that our clients are excited about the same technicalities of what we do than we are. So a lot of the times you can't wait to tell them, hey, this is the type of paver we use. This is why, because the structural ability to handle weight as opposed to a concrete, pier is better. It's also more aesthetically pleasing because of the obtuse lines, and the Frank Lloyd Wright made this design. I mean, we can go off the deep end in terms of why it's so great. Yep. And that's the features and benefits, Josh, that you're talking about, right? Which have no applicability right now. It's all about what is the outcome for your client? What is it that they actually truly want, need, or desire? Now, you talked about emotion, right, Josh? Now, I'm going to say safety is number one initially. Number two, emotional element is what you provide Does it satisfy a very deep need, want, and desire? Okay. What is it that they truly, truly want, need, or desire? So I'll go back to the car analogy for a second. Logically, do I need a car? Yes. I need to go from A to B. Does it have an engine? Yes. Does it have four wheels? Yes. Does it steer left when I turn left? Yes. Those are the technicalities of a car. See, I assume those are already there, right? Great. Now, next thing, does it satisfy a deep want, need, or desire? Oh man, the feeling of a V10 engine right behind me in a McLaren 720S, and the sound of the roar of the engine, the intake sound, me taking a corner at 40 miles an hour, and a 90-degree hairpin turn, me rolling down, South Beach in my orange McLaren. Like, those are the emotions, right? So we all understand that. And so when it comes to selling something, we have to be asking skilled questions that asks the client truly what they want, need, or desire. And Josh, you just gave one away and it was just a throwaway, but I want to stop everyone for a second. The question that you ask the client to know that is a prepared, skilled question that sets expectations on what your clients ultimately will get. Josh, what is that question?
I mean, there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, give me one of them.
Well, I mean, ultimately, you can ask a client, so, we're obviously looking at this backyard and you want to update it. What are you hoping to achieve? What do you want the result to look like? How do you want to use this space? These kinds of the angles, get into them more with than, oh, you just want a patio? Sure, I can do that. I can knock you out a 10 by 20. Not a problem. But will that 10 by 20 actually give them the results they want? Because that's a features and benefit kind of approach versus going deeper into the emotional side. So what do you hope this space will do for you? How will your family use it? And start to visualize what that looks like. And then all of a sudden they can picture themselves out there. Hey, imagine it's a year from now and this new space is completed. You walk out into this beautiful space. What does it have to look and feel like for you to know that it was an absolute success? Like, these kinds of questions are what open your client up. And when it comes down to it, they're looking for a result at the end, right? They're choosing, let's just say, between three different people. They're choosing the person who they have the highest confidence that is going to give them the result. 90% emotional, 10% logical, and the safety that you mentioned as well. All of that stuff they want. Now, secondary to most, not all, but to most, is what is that going to cost me? And the higher probability that they're going to succeed, that's the person they're going to choose. It's the idea. Did they listen? Did they ask questions? Were they belligerent fools telling me what I should do? Or were they open and listening, trying to unpack the story? Because I'm not sure, as the homeowner, I'm not sure what I need yet. I don't know what I need, want, and desire. I just kind of know what I have sucks, and I want to be able to do, I want space for my family to get together. I want to be able to grill burgers outside. I want to be able to sit back and watch the kids play in the pool. I want all those things, but I don't know how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I would love someone who is a guide that could help me make great decisions. And once you become that character in the story, the guide, the next thing you know, the price is always a consideration, but it's not the only consideration.
Correct. We got to talk about that for a second, because I have a feeling that if we're not building that story and we don't have clarity on the true emotional outcomes for our clients, then price is the only consideration. That's the problem. And now you're being pitted up against every Tom, Dick, and Harry that's doing something similar, right? And let's say at the end of the day, your projects come out exactly the same. Who's going to get the job is the question. Well, who's going to get the job are the people who can create clarity and expectation on the outcomes of that. And that is the biggest expectation that we can establish. What will it look like when the patio is all done for you? Well, it's going to look like this and look like that. And is it just you that will be using your space in your family? Or do you have family and friends? What does that look like? And then STFU, let them talk. Got it. And would it only be for special holidays or throw together parties at, in midweek? What time of day? Is it nighttime? Is there outdoor lighting? Where's the grill? How many people do you serve? Who's coming? I mean, these are all clarifying questions, probing, clarifying questions that helps build a story in the back of your client's mind on, that's what I want. I just don't want a patio. I want to build an experience. I want to build a memory. Case in point, Josh, we're getting our back patio done, right? And it's funny because I'm thinking about you the whole time. And the guy who's doing it is incredible. He's actually my neighbor, and he's in the business, and he's my neighbor, so he has a direct view of my backyard, right? So he's way more in tune with what the space is going to be used for. So he'll say, 12 people. I've seen you have people over at your house before. It seems like it's your family and friends, and then sometimes I see your college son bring over friends, and they're by the fire pit, doing their thing. I think this will work out for this, and this will work out for this. So he's building a picture of the clarity on what my life will look like when I do X, Y, and Z. See, that's what I'll pay premium for. You know what I'm saying? That is what I'll pay premium for, to establish a memory as opposed to just a organized set of Legos on my patio. You know what I'm saying? So cool.
100%. 100%. And you're exactly right. And, really, it's at the end of the day, guys, details matter. And if you're going 1,000 miles a minute trying to chase every single lead that comes into the door because you feel like they should get your time and you should do FaceTime with them at their house, and it takes you on average 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour to get there, and you're chasing every single lead without any pre-qualification, you're going to end up not being able to serve any of those clients well. It's like you're taking 1% of your time and giving it to everybody. And the problem is the average in our industry for closing is 2 or 3 out of 10. Wow. Which is crazy, right? So you wonder why you're having that problem. The problem is that imagine if you would stop doing that and start focusing on half of those people and spending twice the amount of time by just asking them some questions up front, pre-qualifying them. So when you go out to meet with them, there's a much higher probability they have the understanding of what you do and the ability to say yes to you.
And the clarity.
Instead of thinking that you're going to, and clarity for sure. And to think that, because this is something that I was stuck with, Dan, before I met you, is this idea that, hey, you know what, there's 8 billion people on the planet. If they called me, I have to go out. It's a show. I got to go out. What are they going to say if I don't go out to meet with them on site and go and hold their hand at their house? Like, if I just talk on the phone, there's no way I can possibly differentiate myself. I must go out. And what I realized is that was wrong.
Wrong. 100%.
Yeah, we have to work, we have to build and demonstrate value, ask great questions, all of that, all before we go out to make sure they're even playing the same game that we are. And once we do and we realize that, then we can go out and you talk about increasing your closing rates. Imagine, listeners, if you would, instead of seeing 10 prospects per week, imagine if you only saw 2, but you closed both of them.
Yeah.
Right? And you turn those projects from $5,000 projects into 10, 15, 20, or $100,000, $200,000, whatever it might be for you. But you turn them up because you could actually listen and spend the time with them. You're less stressed out. You're more focused on serving them and not trying to just be the man that's everywhere and trying to balance crews and trying to run a business and trying to be a husband or wife and trying to be a father or mother, like all of those things. What if you simplified your approach and you only went out to the ones with the highest probability of that you're able to serve? Because not everybody's servable. We don't have to serve everybody. We have to serve the people that are in line with what we do best, with the gifts that God's given us. It's now our opportunity to serve with them, and that's not everybody.
I'm going to say amen, man. It's so true.
Amen.
It's so true.
You got it. But all right, guys. So today, my bigger lesson for this is about clients will always move forward with the option that seems most certain to bring the least pain and the most pleasure, right? We're always trying to minimize our pain and maximize our pleasure. And if your offer, if your idea, your plan for their backyard, your approach, the experience they've experienced is herky-jerky, and or you say 2:00, you show up at 3, proposal on Friday, you do it on Monday, and you start busting trust right off in the beginning, the chance of you being able to serve that client and get paid premium for it goes down every single time that happens. If you want to raise your closing rate and you want to stop killing that rate, you have to make sure your customers are never guessing, that they always know what's coming next. And what that might mean, and this is going to be painful for some of you listeners, what that might mean is to stop trying to do everything. It's slowing it down and realizing you don't have to serve all 10 of those leads coming in. You need to have a pre-qual process where you know that when you're going out and meeting with them, that there's a very high likelihood 90% or more, that they're going to say yes, and they can say yes to you. It's a vetting process. Then things change. Then you can spend the time with them, and then you can serve them at the much higher level. That's really what it's all about.
Well said. Nothing I can add to that.
Well, Dan, I appreciate you coming on today. And I look forward next week. We're going to talk about why you're killing your closing by talking too much and neglecting your clients' needs. So we're going to talk about how to teach you how to STF you, and we'll talk about that next time.
Oh, I love that topic.
Listen to your clients more. There's a rule. It's called the 80-20 rule. And we're going to teach you next week. Thank you guys for listening.